Bodies be hitting the floor in this week's episode of Tsukimichi. I mean, it feels like there's no hope in saving anyone who's mutated. Hopley seemingly is dead or is about to be, just based on the end of this episode. Now, obviously, we didn't see like a death scene, but that's probably how next week's gonna start up. Father and grieving here, and ultimately everything going on in the general market with everyone who did transform. Well, like Shiki does say, like it's not impossible in theory. It probably is impossible in theory. Like it seems like it's a carrot on the stick of if you really, really tried, could you? Maybe 1 out of 1,000 simulations, potentially, but realistically, no. And because of that, all these mutations are gonna be put down. And this episode was actually insanely well produced. Not that I think season 2's been badly produced, I've actually quite enjoyed it. I think it's been a rather consistent season. But the idea of having a group of people transform and mutate and having such abominations to fight, the actual muscle contractions and just the way, it's not just simply about, oh, they punched really smooth. If you really pay attention to the smaller details of everything happening with these creatures, the amount of attention to detail put into them made it feel so intense and realistic for what we were dealing with. This was a fantastically entertaining episode with a lot of emotion, some fun, obviously with the whole teleport gag and everything like that, but while many people may not be crying tears for characters we don't know the names of, or many people aren't going to cry tears because of Hopley's, I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of emotion at play for these characters, and I think the author did a great job, and the studio adapting it did a great job at making the viewer empathize with what's going on. Of course, I have full live reactions over on my Patreon. If you want to see my full in-depth thoughts of this or any of these wonderful Tsukimichi episodes, it's going to be over there if you're interested. So, this was good. Now, did I think they were going to be able to save everyone? To be honest, I didn't give it much thought, but I was pretty 50-50 on it. I thought to myself, given everything we know about these characters, being able to save them wouldn't be completely irrational, but I also kind of expected things not to work out, and pretty quickly they make it clear things ain't gonna work out. Now granted, could next episode come in and actually we are saving them? Sure, but I highly doubt it. It's interesting because the detail and grotesqueness to what we're fighting is so well done, because rather than, and I'm not saying like it's a common thing, but if you even rewind a few years ago, it was a lot more common if there was like a scene like this where a bunch of people mutated, they would copy and paste the same character design to fight, because obviously it's easier for production, but also it just makes it more simple. Like it'd be like oh, it's kind of like a zombie-like design or this or that. They're all different. It's actually like the same type variety as something like an Attack on Titan. Yeah, they all kind of feel like the same type of vibe, but they all have their own distinctions. And because of it, we got some really cool looking beasts, we had some weird looking beasts, and well, Hopley's himself was interesting because he pulls out the Reki Kawahara special at one point, grabs with his tentacles and is wrapping around fools left and right. But he almost has like a build similar to like Venom in terms of like stature, but then like his face is so gross. Like every time I looked up this fool, I was like, God damn, bro, you butt ass ugly, but it's such a cool fight. Here's the thing, when you bust out the school's strongest defense squad, each of them master of their element, we got this, homies. You know what? It's like, the only one who did any sort of damage was the dude who could cast fire, and they all like casually died. When the most powerful people that this school has to offer get almost one-shotted, you know this is a normally very bad situation, and these demons would have had the most biggest W had our boy Mokuto and his crew not stepped in. I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about that, because if the school's most powerful, like sure, okay, maybe an army or this or that, maybe, sure. If it was just a singular person they had to fight, and the school fell, sure. Could the humans survive? Absolutely. But with everything rampaging in the city, like it's a good thing Mokuto and Tomoe are going to clean up that section, because otherwise there's just no way. Like it's just, there's just no way. In my humble opinion, there's no way. I did like how they snuck in more like comedy and entertainment, like when they teleported up to get to the king and like the headmaster of the school was there. I like how obviously it's so easy for them to think of stuff like telepathy or teleportation. That's second nature to them. It's like breathing. It's something they don't even consider as complex, but for anyone else in this world would be like the most advanced spells possible. So the idea of being able to tell, like, hey, just think of a location that's safe, I'll take you there, is something that's completely irrational to anyone who's thinking logically. And the idea of progressing it to the sword, like, oh, it's the sword that can do it. Here's a little test, Ludo coming in clutch. I liked how they're able to use logic to get around it rather than just trust me on the MC, you have to believe me, a character you have no knowledge of, and I'm just a part-time teacher. Like, would you jump into a magical teleport circle of a character you've never met in person before, who's saying he can do the most complex thing no one you know of can do? No, you gotta make sure that shit works. And once you realize it works, it's like, take me away, Jarvis, like, whatever you want. It was just good. I like how they had some fun, but, you know, it was actually very sad seeing how, like, you know, not only did, like, the king and, you know, the father of Hopley's, like, come down there, it was just, like, it was sad to see them in that state, because whatever your opinion of this guy was, at the end of the day, he was someone's friend, he was someone's son, he was someone's family, right? And, like, that's the biggest thing that sometimes anime fans don't empathize with, is the fact that just because you feel a certain way doesn't mean everyone's gonna agree. I guarantee you there's someone in your life that if they did a horrible thing, a shitty thing, it's entirely possible that you would be like, well, they're my friend, and even if they made a mistake, some people completely brush it off as if they didn't make a mistake, and then there's people who can recognize it and still say, well, I know deep down they're actually a decent person. It's easy to be an anime watcher and say, oh, this thing was scummy, but at the end of the day, was he a shitty person to the person he cared about? Yes. Did he abuse her? No. People think that push in the hit or whatever in the previous episode and the flashback was him. It wasn't. It was one of the other people he was with. At the end of the day, it's easy for us to say, this guy deserves this guy deserves that. But at the end of the day, he was a stupid teenager. Did he deserve death? No. He deserved, you know, counseling at worst. But even if you were in that camp of, for whatever reason, thinking he deserved death because he was kind of a shitty person to someone he cared about, because he couldn't get into contact with her because Makoto and his people continuously stopped him from doing so, at the end of the day, this was someone's son. And the idea that the author wrote it as such is something I respect. It's not going to change the people who have a diehard hatred for this character, but the fact that the author was willing to write a scene like this rather than just being like, nah, fuck him, this, that, and the third, I appreciate when an author can pull that off, and I thought the studio did a good job. It's simple moments, someone just bent over, just exhausted in tears and sorrow. It goes a long way to express the type of pain they're dealing with, even if I'm not personally shedding a tear because this guy's about to die. It sucks for him. Wish he would have made better life decisions, but it was a really well-written character, all things considered. Like, obviously, these types of arcs aren't going to be for everyone, though the one thing I will say is I bet a lot of people enjoyed this episode, even if they didn't like Hopley's character, just because there was a lot of action. I think it was well produced, the music is hype as hell. I don't think Tsukimichi has the most creative soundtrack by any stretch, but that shit's always got me bopping and rocking in my chair, so it does what it needs to. But let me know what you thought down below, because this was incredible. Still some more to do with the cleanup, but I'm expecting some tears on the character sides and some more action as well. But let me know what you thought down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course ring that bell so you know if I want to upload more. And like I mentioned, we got those full live reactions over on my Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. Alright, so today we have Wade Smith, Vasuva Granada, and we also have Gabby G. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.